Take it away, Pastor T.
Thank you, Apostle James, and welcome to Christian Networking Entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Pastor T, and Christian Networking Entrepreneurs is a show where we showcase emerging entrepreneurs, small business owners, and community leaders. And today we have a phenomenal guest that is a community leader. So help me welcome to the show, Celeste Terry from the United Black Fund. Hey, Celeste, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right, we appreciate you joining us today. So today our guest, Celeste Terry, is going to tell us a little bit about the United Black Fund. But before we get into the United Black Fund, we want to find out all about Celeste Terry. So Celeste, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, let's see. I am a native of Cleveland, Ohio. Grew up in Shaker Heights, Ohio. Graduate of Shaker Heights High School. I won't say what year, but it was in the 70s. So I'm a member of the Hall of Fame there. I am a adjunct professor at Case Western Reserve University, field instructor, grants manager at the United Black Fund. I'm an author. So, a lot of things.
All right, let's unpack some of those things.
Okay.
Some of that. So when I first met you, I was thinking about that on my drive here today. I said, I think I first met Celeste at the Toastmasters.
Yes.
Was it Toastmasters?
That was Toastmasters a long time ago.
I know.
And I don't think you had I think you had just started to open Mimi's, and I think I stood up and talked because I was doing massage at that time.
Yeah.
And that's what caught your attention, and then I started doing massage for you at Mimi's.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and I was thinking, I'm like, okay, so Celeste, we go way back. That's
way
been over 20-something plus
I know. Isn't that something?
years ago.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah. So, and then when I first met you, you had just relocated here from New York.
Yes, came back from New York. So I'd been there almost 20 years, and so basically I kind of burned out, and so I had to come back home to kind of put myself and my life back together.
Okay.
And so I think I was maybe about 37.
All right.
Yeah, so it was like a kind of a long drawn out thing because I had a little stint in Miami Beach because I had a little nervous breakdown and depression and things like that. So a friend of mine sent me a one-way plane ticket. He said, just come down to Miami and get yourself together. I said, fine. So I packed up my cat in a few suitcases, and I just went down. I stayed with him for almost a year, and then I said, well, I think I'm ready to go back. He said, are you sure? I said, yes, I'm sure. So I went back to New York, and then I stayed with my friend John in Brooklyn for about 4 months, and I said, well, I think I'm gonna go back to Ohio. He said, are you sure? Everybody was like, are you sure? So then I called my parents. I said, well, I think I'm ready. They said, okay, well, you're welcome to come back. So
okay, cool.
I went back, and I just had to really start over. So I basically put my life back together from the time I returned to Cleveland till now. So it's a whole different life.
I know, a whole different you.
Fabulous, wonderful life.
Yeah. So is that where you started the whole social work piece?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, actually, because I never really knew about social work, but I think I kind of was doing it, but I didn't really know what it was. And so then I was, working at the United Black Fund, and then, got accepted into Case, the Mandel School, and so then I got the master's degree in social work and all of that. So yeah.
So being, let's kind of like unpack that a little more. So when you went to New York, had a fabulous time, got burnt out, do you think the whole social work piece started because of the stress, because of the feeling like you were having a nervous breakdown, or because you feel like your life was spiraling out of control?
Yes, because it was really quite funny, because when I was sitting in my classes, in my master's classes, and I was hearing the professors talk, and the light bulbs went off. I said, wait a minute, that's what was wrong with me, So I started learning about what was really wrong with me, and that's where I really realized I was like clinically depressed, but I really didn't know at the time. So I kind of began to understand, what had happened and what was wrong, and then I started to be able to put it together. But yeah, that's exactly what happened. So it gave me some clarity.
Yeah, and that's amazing, because I remember I went through a bout with depression, never got diagnosed whether it was clinical or not. But when I went through the depression, it was like I knew that I wasn't myself. I felt like if I could describe it, like I was underwater. You know,
Yes.
like everything was going on and I was
Yes.
focusing, but I was underwater. And I didn't realize that I was depressed till I actually came out of the depression.
Yes.
And then when I came out of depression and I look back, hindsight is 2020, and I was like, wow, I was really depressed.
Yeah, so like my case, I think it was like a long time. I would say like 12 years. But the thing about it is, in my case, I was kind of suicidal too. But I couldn't read books for a couple of years, because I couldn't focus.
Okay.
And
okay.
I didn't wear a watch for several years. I managed to get to places on time. I don't know how I did it, but I never wore a watch. Couldn't focus. It was just a really, really difficult time. And so I was falling apart, and my friends saw that I was falling apart, and they were like, well, what's wrong with her? But, that's what was going on.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
So then you've turned that all around and made it really, really work for you. So after that, you went back to school.
Yep.
And then you went for your degree in social work.
Yeah.
And then from there, you went and got your master's degree in social work.
Yeah. So actually, I had gotten into New York University when I was in New York. So I went to there for a short, maybe about a year.
Okay.
And so, life started getting in the way. And so, that crashed. And so that was a dream because I always wanted a master's degree, but then, it crashed. So 22 years later, the opportunity came in Cleveland. And so 22 years later, at the age of 45, I went back to Case and obtained my master's degree.
It's never too late.
It's
never too late.
Never too late.
I love it. That's really cool, and that really kind of gives people hope, because a lot of people say, okay, well, I didn't do it in my 20s, I didn't do it in my 30s. It's too late. It's never too late.
It's never too late.
And then you just totally reinvented yourself.
Completely.
So then social work, and then after that, nonprofit became your thing.
Yeah. That was interesting too, because my mom was the director of the United Black Fund, and so I didn't know anything really about nonprofit, but I always heard and was around, and knew about what she did, and she was one of the founders. She's like the last surviving founder. Yeah, the last surviving
Ruby
member.
Terry.
Yeah. And so I always, heard about things, and so she thought, I would be a good fit because my experience in New York, I worked in corporate marketing. So I worked at Citicorp, what was then Citicorp. It was New York banking division. So I was in corporate marketing, sales promotion, and advertising and all that. Right in the heart of things, and working with corporate advertising. It was pretty interesting and very cool, actually. So she figured it would be a good fit, so she actually hired me. And so
when you first were hired on, what were you hired on as?
I was hired on as doing grants. Well, actually, I was doing a little consulting work, working with some of the community organizations, and then I was doing, we did something called Neighbors United for Safe Youth, which was called NUSI, and basically it was a train the trainers where we taught conflict resolution to the estates. What do you call it? Cuyahoga Metropolitan Housing. CMHA.
Okay.
And so we were teaching the residents their conflict resolution. So at that time, when President Clinton was in office, he had signed into law where if neighbors were bad neighbors, they could be evicted, and then they would lose their housing. And if they were kicked out of federal housing, you would not be able to get into other federal housing. And so they would contact us to do mediation with the residents to give them a chance before, they possibly would be evicted.
Yeah.
So then we would train the residents, and the residents would also become instructors. So did that a number of years, and then I was actually hired on. So then I became the grants manager.
So how long have you been in that position as the grants manager?
Oh, gosh, it's been over 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been over 20 years.
So when I met you, that's the position that you had. Okay,
and,
cool.
and still doing it.
Cool beans,
and still love it.
So now what we didn't talk about in this course of us knowing each other, you wrote a book.
Yes, I wrote a book, back in 2008, which chronicled, the nervous breakdown. But I made it into a book which talked about my transformation personally, but then using my skills to help transform UBF, because at that time, the internet and all of that was beginning to happen. And so, I was a bit of a geek. Well, I still am a little bit.
I'm a little bit. Go ahead, girl. Go ahead.
But, so I was getting us into like internet radio. I had a show demystifying nonprofits that, was publicity for us as well as the agencies we funded. I had a podcast, and, I was finding different new technologies to utilize that United Black Fund could use so we could get a wider audience.
Right, right. Mm-hmm. So just using that platform with the because you were doing podcasts before podcasts were popular.
Yeah.
I mean, this was
ago.
Back
2004.
Yeah,
when it started.
Yeah.
I was always finding things,
and then like, let me try this.
Yeah, and I would figure out how to use it, and then I would implement it and use it for UBF to expand our reach.
All right. So what's the title of your book?
It was called, let me see, what is the name of my book?
Demystifying
Nonprofits for Relevancy in Challenging Times.
So what are you doing with that right now? Because I remember maybe about 5 years ago, I came to a workshop seminar that you were doing as it relates to that. And you had like different pieces that you were sharing about the book. So what are you doing with the book now, or even with that workshop?
Actually, I was trying out things. So this was what we were talking about before, how you try things and you kind of see, what you're good at and what fits. So I, saw a number of associates who were doing, workshops and things. I said, well, let me try that. So I tried it, and I did 2 of them, and so I realized this is not my thing.
Okay.
And so I decided that wasn't my thing in that format. But what I really discovered is I'm really a professor. I'm really a teacher.
Right.
So that's what I do. But I don't teach in that particular format. But I'm really a teacher.
But that's good. To me, that's good. So even with this platform, we talk to emerging entrepreneurs, we talk to small business owners, and we talk to community leaders. You're here to represent the community leader piece, right? But even in representing that community leader piece as emerging entrepreneurs, sometimes you try something on for size and it just doesn't fit.
Exactly. And that's, but you try. And so I did. I had some people come. They came to the second one. I said, I don't think this isn't working for me. So I didn't do anything else with it. And so, I have my book. So sometimes people may call me, but I don't really do too much with that right now because there's probably another book coming, but it's not there yet. The words haven't come yet, but it's coming. But what I have found is I'm more focused on my teaching at Case and working with my students. And what has happened is I started a grant writing class back in 2017 in Mount Pleasant to teach my people about grant writing and how to play the game. So I decided I would offer this class in an underserved community, which is Mount Pleasant, a community that I know and like. And so I, got everything set up and offered this class starting in September 2017. Wildly popular, over 400 people attended. And then what happened was probably earlier last year, I was invited to a meeting with another organization, Cleveland Leadership Center. And they had a cohort that went to Puerto Rico 2 years ago when Hurricane Maria hit.
Right.
So they went to help because there's a large Puerto Rican population here in Cleveland. And so what came out of that visit was that people wanted to know about grant writing. So at this meeting, they were talking about this. And so keep in mind, from the time they went in 2018 to the time I was at that meeting, which is probably November 2019, nothing had happened.
Right.
So I'm sitting in the meeting, I'm going, wait a minute. I said, this is what I do. I teach community grant writing. I said, well, I have a manual, so we can just adapt that and we can use it. And they were like, oh my God, this is fabulous. So what has happened is that my community grant writing class in Mount Pleasant has morphed into this international training.
Wow.
And I've done, so what happened was we were going to go to Puerto Rico April 26th to April 30th, but then of course the pandemic hit, so we couldn't go. And so we decided we would still, because we were going to go and I was going to teach my grant writing in Puerto Rico.
Right.
And so the manual that, you saw because you came to class, which I always collected, I never let anybody have. And so that was, translated into Spanish. And so we decided we would still offer it. So we offered our class by Zoom. And we did it the same dates, April 27th, April 30th, and we did a third one, May 21st. But the exciting part is that as I spoke, my words were translated into Spanish, right? And so the third workshop was completely in Spanish, so people saw my face, but all they
Somebody
heard was
else's
Spanish. Yes.
lyrics was going over in Spanish.
Yes.
How cool is that?
So my manuals all over Puerto Rico in Spanish, and doing this, and so let me just have a little water.
That's okay. That is really cool. So that's because just think about it, and this is for entrepreneurs. You're just doing something that you totally love to do.
Yep.
So first you would like doing these workshops. This is not working. Tried it on for size. It just doesn't fit. It's just not me. I'm a professor. I'm a presenter. Now a workshop and a professor and a presenter, it seems like it's the same, but it's totally different. It's totally different once you really get into the nitty gritty of it. So you're doing your classes, grant writing classes in Mount Pleasant as a way to give back to the community. My people need to understand how to write these grants. I'm giving back to the community.
And I'm for free.
For free.
And I'm showing up, I'm doing it whether people, sometimes there's nobody there, sometimes it'd be one person. I said, we get a private lesson tonight. Or, so I would just be there, and I would just, for 3 years, I was just doing this. And so I think the lesson is I was ready. It's like that message,
When the student is ready, the teacher will come. Right, and opportunity, yes.
The opportunity was there, and so there it was. So it was wonderful, because, I was ready and had the opportunity. But the wonderful thing is for the bigger picture for the United Black Fund. Here is a Black organization, and me, doing international training with my work that is being, translated into Spanish.
And then from Spanish, from Puerto Rico, it could go the possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
The possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
So let's back up. Let's talk
and
about
I'm working
this.
on my Spanish too.
Only thing I know is hola.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Look at you, go girl. And you got to be prepared for that.
That's what I'm saying. Because when we go back, I'm going to be ready.
Amen.
I'll be ready.
Amen.
Because we are going back. So when we go back, I'll be ready.
You'll be ready.
And, I'm making my other little connections. So, yeah, I'll have either people that I will know that the other people won't know that, I'll be seeing when I go down there.
Good. That's amazing. From a grant writing class at Mount Pleasant. Now my girl is doing international big things, starting off in Puerto Rico. But now once everything is translated into Spanish, it can go to so many different Spanish-speaking countries. Mm-hmm. So let's back up. Let's talk about the whole grant writing class.
Yes.
As she mentioned, I attended the grant writing class. It's a 3-part class. Is it still a 3-part class?
Yes.
Okay, because it's been about a year since I attended
Yes.
it. And she teaches you everything from A to Z as it relates to getting ready to apply for a grant. Not just to apply for United Black Fund grants, just to apply for grants in general. Because if you don't know, you don't know.
You don't.
And a lot of times it's not like, no, I'm not trying to write a grant or put that on for myself, for my organizations, but just having the know-how.
Yes.
So with attending your workshops and knowing the know-how, somebody else on my team actually got the grant together, but I was able to look at it and to know, in Celeste's class, it said we need to have a logic model.
Exactly.
It needs to make sense.
It needs to make sense.
In Celeste's class, she said you're not in front of the people, so when they read this document about you, you and your personality need to jump out of this page so they can know who you are.
Exactly.
And in Celeste's class, she said that if you don't have the experience, you need to have somebody on your team with those skill sets or that has the experience. So when you come together, you're this whole big package. So in the grant writing class, for it to just really prosper, it was dynamic. You were doing it for free. And we always say in our ministry, we don't do anything for free. We sow seeds.
Okay.
So you sown those seeds.
I'm sowing them.
And them seeds are now reaping a harvest.
Yes.
Yeah, so tell the viewing audience just a little bit about are you doing the classes virtually now?
Yeah, I'm going to
Okay.
start maybe maybe late August or September.
Okay.
But I will start up again. They'll be virtual.
All
yes,
right.
because
So
they have to be right now.
right now in the midst of the pandemic,
Yes.
a lot of things are being virtual, and then just being creative about it. So even the opportunity for you to do it in Puerto Rico didn't happen because you couldn't go to Puerto Rico because you couldn't travel
Right.
because we're in the midst of a pandemic.
Exactly.
And just not saying, oh, this didn't work. You got together virtually and did it virtually.
We did it anyway and still offered at the same time.
Same time,
Right.
same date, same station, all of that stuff.
All
And
of
then in the midst of it, okay, I don't speak Spanish. Okay, you don't speak Spanish. What are we going to do? Boom, you get a translator.
We get a translator. So I'm meeting all these, wonderful new people and just seeing how this new way to do something happens.
Yeah.
So it's pretty exciting.
It is.
Very
I'm excited for
Yeah,
you.
so it's
I'm
very
really
exciting.
excited to see that when obstacles come, we don't just sit back and say, this is not working. We get creative.
Yes.
And we get our mind going and we figure out a way to make this thing work.
Exactly. And so like when we're sitting in the class, as I tell people, all I have as a reviewer is what you send me. So if it doesn't make sense or if it's all over the place, this is all I have. So it's got to be compelling if you want me to take my time to read it.
Let's talk about that. Let's
Okay,
talk about that
let's
because see,
talk about that.
I tell people a lot of times that when people are looking at papers and stuff, knowing what your skill set is and what your skill set. For me, I'm not good at grammar or sentence structure or anything. I write my thoughts down, then I got to pass that on for somebody who is going to make it grammatically correct for me and put the sentence structure in. So I don't care how many books I read, how much I did pass. I actually got a bachelor's degree, but it's just not my gifting. So when it comes to things like this, let the viewing audience know how important it is to have that stuff together on paper.
Oh my gosh, I can't stress enough because again, this is representing you. You have to get past the reviewer, which is the grants person, who is going to, pass it on to the committee for review. So if it doesn't get past me, it's not going to the committee because I'm not going to waste the committee's time because the committee's going to be looking at me like, well,
how did this even get past you?
What's going on? Why did this get past you? So we don't do that. So again, it's take your time. And if you know that certain things are not your skill, then you find someone who can look at it for you. I always have people look at things for me before I do something.
Yeah, it's one thing to put some internal paperwork in with the ministry. It's another thing if I'm sending it out somewhere. It's like, okay, if I'm sending this out, I need to go to, it's like a little app on your phone, Grammarly. Yes. Grammarly help a sister out all the time.
Because there's so many things that you can use. And in terms of research, too, I cannot stress the importance of doing your research to present your information properly, because if you are trying to get grant money, you have to present the fact that you understand the issue, you have to understand the market, the audience that you're planning to serve, and you have to understand the need and why is your program needed.
Right.
So you've got to really justify and really explain what is going to make your program stand out, because in Cleveland, Northeast Ohio, there's so many nonprofit organizations and so many that very often are doing a lot of the same things.
Same things.
So you have to stand out, you have to distinguish yourself, and so nothing does that better than a well-crafted application that really states what you do and states it well.
That's so good. So let's just what is the United Black Fund? What do y'all do?
Okay, well, the United Black Fund, actually, we're coming up on almost 40 years.
40
which is
years of
pretty
being
amazing.
in it. That is.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
And so we were founded back in 1981. We were kind of morphed out of two organizations called the Negro Community, remember that word? The Negro Community Federation and Blacks Organized for Social Services. So back then, the folks who were involved in a lot of the community organization, they all came out of Mount Pleasant, that area for the most part. They were all working together, but they realized that they were kind of doing the same thing.
Okay.
And so they realized that they could fold that together. And then in the meantime, the late George W. White, who was the founder, had seen an article in Ebony magazine about United Black Fund America. So he called up Calvin Rolark, who was the president. And so he went down and talked to them. And so United Black Fund America was involved in doing payroll deduction because there were a lot of African Americans working for the federal government. So they were involved in payroll deduction to get them to donate that way. But Judge liked the model, but they decided they didn't want to get into payroll deduction.
Okay.
That they would strictly stay with being philanthropic and do grants. Now, the reason they did that was because prior to that time, I'm going to say 1981, it was virtually impossible for small black nonprofit organizations to get funding.
Okay.
So, you couldn't really go to the Cleveland Foundation or the Gun Foundation or some other places to get money because they weren't going to fund you. It just didn't happen.
It just wasn't available for African Americans, period.
Wasn't going to happen.
Okay.
Wasn't going to happen.
Okay.
And so when we came on the scene, then it kind of leveled the playing field for our community, and then the other organizations, started
letting us play.
Yes,
We couldn't sit at the table, but at least we could play.
Yeah, we could play
Okay.
and be at the
Okay.
table a bit more. And so it really was about leveling the playing field and letting our community be involved in accessing philanthropic dollars so that we could address issues in our community.
Okay, so the United Black Fund America is United Black Fund Cleveland associated?
No,
So it's
totally.
just two totally different things.
Yeah,
so y'all do totally different things.
And their founders, they've passed away. I don't even know if they're really still
They're not in
functioning.
existence
They
anymore.
may not. I don't really know. But Calvin and his wife both passed away years ago. So I don't even know if they're still
in existence.
functioning.
Okay.
But no, we're totally separate. No kind of affiliation.
Okay.
No.
All right. So in a nutshell, United Black Fund gives money to nonprofit organizations, and you have 3 different tiers.
Yes.
Okay.
So we are a grant maker, and so we are a federated organization. So we are a federated organization with United Way, like the Jewish Community Federation and Catholic Charities, in the sense that we do not do direct service. We get funding, and then we provide funding to 501c3 organizations. So you have to be a 501c3 tax exempt organization. So we do not make grants to individuals. You must be.
People call you out for some money.
So don't call me up looking for a grant for yourself. But you have to be, a tax exempt organization from the IRS.
I am tax exempt.
Yes.
I found pharmaceuticals on the corner.
Then we can talk. But yeah, so you have to do that. And so it was a very unique concept because, for a group of African, because they were professionals, they were lawyers, doctors.
Yeah.
My mom was an engineer, and all that.
Yeah.
So they came together as a group of black professionals and put this thing together. And here we are 40 years later.
Still going strong.
We're still going strong.
That's amazing.
And still leaving our mark and still making it possible for black organizations to at least be part of the philanthropic community.
Yeah, that's really good. And then the fact, to me, I keep going back to your grant writing class because it's so important because a lot of, basically, when you start a nonprofit, it's from passion. It's something that you love to do, something that you have a heartbeat for. 99.99% of the time, you funding it yourself. You paying for it. You might get somebody to give you some money to help you buy some things, whatever you're doing for your nonprofit. But the fact that there is something like the United Black Fund that exists that will help people help people.
Yes. And you're absolutely right, because a lot of people, that's how they start, and it could be for years. You have a passion for what you want to do, and you're paying for it out of your pocket, and maybe after a couple of years you're like, there's got to be another way, and then somehow or another you hear about the United Black Fund because you may have heard about my grant writing class, and so then you come to class, and then you talk about it. And so the other purpose with my class is I look for 2 organizations that are ready, meaning that they have their 501c3. They've been doing the work for at least 4 years. They're small, but they're just at a point now where they need some grant money.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm happy to say that we're funding 4 organizations that have come through my grant writing class.
Awesome.
You know, they've gone through the whole process, the pre-application, the whole 9 yards, and been vetted and gone through the process. So that's the other thing that I do with the grant class.
And that's good. I mean, because the reality is, if you didn't offer the grant class to the community, for the community to come to share with you their thoughts, their ideas, and try to get this training so that they can write a grant that will be acceptable to the fund, you would never have met those people.
Right. And then they probably would never have heard, because our office is down in Playhouse Square downtown.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of our community, don't go downtown,
mm-hmm.
or they still are a little intimidated about going downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it weren't for me being right in the community, they probably would not hear about me or would not even know. So I started doing morning classes and evening classes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was doing morning, evening, and then it just worked out that more people were starting to come in the evening. So then I just
did away
do
with
the
the
evening
morning classes.
Yeah, and I think the first time I got so caught up in talking that I almost got locked in the building, that night, because the guard didn't know I was still there, and then they pulled the gates and everything. She said, "Oh, I didn't know you were here." I was like, "Oh my God," So now I know I have to be out of there.
They're gonna shut it down. You're gonna be sleeping there if you don't get out of there by a certain time.
But they were always, very nice and very accommodating for me. They loved having me, at Mount Pleasant Development now. So it's great working relationship.
Yeah, that's cool. So, and it's funny how you would say that first we started off trying to have it in the morning and the evening, and that goes back to trying something on the side.
You see how it goes, and I did, like I did, I had, a good little group, and it kind of, so you just test things out, and I just kept going with it in the evening, and I would just be there, 5:30 to 7:30, rain, snow, horrible evenings, but it would be packed.
Yeah,
but people would be there. So
that's good.
I would just be there, and then I would have my manual, and I would tell people, I'm collecting this after class. Do not write in it. I'll be checking the front of your coat to make sure there's no book imprint. I have them laughing, but they knew I was serious.
And she is telling the truth. So when you go take her workshop, you better be taking notes or taking pictures with your phone. She do not matter. But you are not walking out of there with that manual.
Right. But you see the reason why. Because you see how the manual has turned into something else. So I wasn't about to have my work all over town, because there was something, I wouldn't say better, but there was something bigger that was going to happen with it. So.
Yeah, and that's your intellectual capital.
That's my
you
property.
took the time to put it together,
That's right.
to help others. But nowadays you definitely got to be careful.
Yeah.
Now, what you saying, that one of the things that I thought about, when you were trying the morning and the evening class, these are just always little tidbits from our entrepreneurs. When we started Christian Networking Entrepreneurs, we tried to do a breakfast meeting. And then we tried a lunch meeting, and then we tried an evening networking. So at the breakfast meeting, we just had a few little people. And like, we're not going to do that again. We tried a lunch meeting. Lunch meeting was actually kind of well attended, but the evenings were always attended
evenings seems to be
much better, right? And then understanding that a lot of entrepreneurs are parallelpreneurs, meaning that they have a 9 to 5 and they work somewhere else, and then their entrepreneur ventures are kind of different. And then we settle on the evening, right? And so then we would do it once a quarter, because we tried once a month. When people get tired, get bored real easy. It seemed like having a quarterly networking event worked out better for us. So now, in the midst of the pandemic, even making those changes, before when we started the show here on KAZ, we only did it once a month. But now that we're not networking, we're not doing anything face-to-face, we move. So now we have the show twice a month.
Okay.
We're here every first and third Thursday. Who knows? We might even move it to more than that.
Exactly.
But then that way I'm trying to get my team. My team is like, they don't want to be on the camera. I'm like, it's really easy. You just having a conversation. The cameras just happen to be in the room, right? So you're just talking to people.
Right.
And so if I can get my team to do it, we might do something weekly. But right now, I know I can commit to the twice a month. And with that being said, knowing that the evening works out for you and you get the bigger attendance, helping the people doing the evening grants. So cool beans.
Yeah, it worked out good. I mean, I had people coming from Lorraine. I had Latino people coming from Lorraine and Westlake, Twinsburg, Macedonia, from all over.
Yeah.
Yeah, Asian people coming.
Yeah.
And they felt comfortable, and we would just have a really wonderful time. And they're like, "Oh my God, it's over!"
It is,
And
because like as you're going, like, oh my, it's time to stop already.
I'm like, "Oh no, we got to wrap this up. We got to, because we got to get out of the building, before we get locked up." But it's been a really, it's been really just, I think, great fun. And again, because I'm a teacher, so I just totally love it.
Yeah.
Because I'm really teaching and imparting good knowledge, and again, looking for my organizations that I can help bring into funding, and as well as just educating people, and again, just seeing how this has grown.
Yeah, it's really grown. And even when I was taking the classes, the wonderful thing about it was the networking. Mm-hmm. So then you're networking with other people who are passionate people like yourself. Mm-hmm. So I remember it was a guy in the class, and he did I think it was some kind of boxing for teenage boys.
Yeah, something.
Yeah, so he was doing his little boxing for the teenage boys to help get them off the street and give them something to focus on. I remember it was a young lady there, and she was doing some kind of housing.
Yes, she was doing like a group home type thing.
Yeah, and then you was like, she's not ready.
Yeah.
So with her in our class, she had the house and she had the idea, but she didn't have the paperwork together. And you was like, you know what, baby girl, you're going to have to work on this. You're going to have to work. And it was somebody else, and some things had came out when we were in the class about the teams and helping people to be clear on who it was that they were going after. And I remember somebody saying something like your bus ticket, and the bus ticket stopped at a certain time. Like if you bought a bus ticket, it was only good for so long. So just learning those different things that
you have to understand that, because if you're going to be providing programming, you have to understand when you can do it, when people are going to be able to get there. And like I said, people have lives, they're busy too. And also you have to look at yourself, because it's going to be a time commitment for you
for sure
as well. And are you going to be able to put that time together? So, for me, okay, I know every Tuesday or every Thursday, okay, I got to make sure I'm available when I say I'm going to do these classes, because, that's what I said I'm going to do.
Right.
So I would be there, I would just be there.
That's good. That's good. So this is our halfway part of the show, and this is with the time of the show when you give us a commercial.
Okay.
So you give them your contact information.
Yes.
Tell them about what you got going on. Then we'll come back and finish the conversation.
Okay. So you can reach me at cterry@unitedblackfund.org, and the number at the office is 216-566-9263. And you can certainly reach out and email me, and that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
I love to hear from people, and I love to I love to help people out.
Yeah. So with that, I know you said the class is going to start being virtual now.
Yes.
So what do you have planned for that so far?
Nothing, but I think it will be Zoom.
Okay.
And so because I've been like zoomed out during this
Ooh, girl.
pandemic, so I'm just seeing how this is going to be. So again, it's going to be I'm just going to transfer what I did, because see, when I did the Puerto Rico classes, that's the first time I ever did Zoom training. So just learning how to do that. So I will do the same thing.
So it'll be some kind of Zoom.
Yeah, it'll be a Zoom.
So I'm thinking about that. I'm like, okay, so how you gonna do your manual? You can't take it back. So
so it might be, I may just have a couple.
Show it, because you can share your screen on.
Yeah,
Zoom.
I might, or I may not be sharing anything.
Okay, they just have to take notes.
They have to take notes.
Okay.
Because I know Nick Perry's like, well, when are you going to use the screen? I got this visual. I said, well, I'm going to work it out. Don't worry about it. So we'll see.
So you'll get it together.
We'll
make some
figure it out.
slides.
Yeah,
create a
I
PowerPoint.
might figure something out.
And something really easy that they
out.
won't take your intellectual
There you
capital.
go.
Sound like a plan. So that's cool, Bing. So what does United Black Fund have coming down the pipes, or?
So there's going to be a virtual annual meeting. They're still working out the dates, but that'll be sometime probably toward the end of August. I have this great new thing with, you're one of the cohort people.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple of people who are been selected to participate in the AFP fundraising opportunity. So that's happening. And so there's some other, very neat things. I would just say just tune in and come to the website and you can see.
Check some
Yeah,
stuff
just
out.
check out what's happening.
So I remember when we went through the workshop,
Mm-hmm.
afterwards, the United Black Fund hosted a meeting. Is that the annual meeting that you're talking about, where the people that were interested in grants, and then you guys had a speaker, we met the whole team. What was that?
Let's see. Yes, I think in the past that was kind of like an annual
Okay.
meeting. Yes, where they had like a panel discussion and things like that.
Yeah, at this
Yeah.
particular one, you had some speakers. So Sonia Leftwich spoke, and somebody else spoke, and you kind of told us about the grant process.
Yes,
It was
yes.
like the next steps after
Yes,
going through your training.
Yes.
Then y'all had like a bigger.
Right.
Okay.
And then we would have a big
Y'all
meeting.
have breakfast and stuff.
Right,
for
we
us.
would have the big grantee meeting. Actually, it would be in January for
Okay.
the folks who were thinking about submitting the
Right,
pre-application.
right.
And I would do that to give them the whole, how to do it and what to do and all the information with that. And again, that's going to be probably different too because everything's virtual.
Yeah.
So I haven't gotten to that yet, but we'll probably figure out what to do because right now what's happened is the whole pandemic hit right in the middle of our grant process.
Okay.
And so we've been doing the committee's virtual site visits and just working out who the grantees for 2020 will be.
Okay.
And then, figuring out the adjustments we have to make, to make these things happen. Because once we determine that, then the grantee meeting, of course, will be virtual. So.
Yeah, and I'm sure like some of the people that get grants, they had to make changes too.
Oh, sure.
Because some of the meetings you meet, and then part of it is funding for food and all of that. So all that stuff is eliminated right now.
Yeah, so everything, yes, in doing our virtual site visits with a lot of the organizations, they're all, struggling in many ways because everybody has to adjust and figure out how they're going to do things virtually or what they can do or what they cannot do.
Yeah.
And particularly programs that are affiliated and tied with the schools. The schools are virtual.
I forget about it. Not having no babies, being
Yes,
empty
yes,
nesters
yes,
is
yes.
such a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
So I don't even be on my radar. So
Right,
yeah.
so,
school programs like for the children and after
all of
school
that.
stuff.
Yes, all of
Yeah.
that. So everything, so everybody's kind of struggling, trying to figure out how they're going to do things and waiting to hear, how things are going to happen. And so it's quite a challenging time for everybody.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so when people apply for the grants, and you said you already have your 4 organizations, you only do that once a year, twice a year? How often does that happen when you open up for people to actually apply?
Right now, it's still once a year, one time a year. So that would be January.
So in January, that's when people can actually apply.
That's when we open up the pre-application time, and then
Okay.
people would be able to submit the pre-application. Right now it's still one time. We've been again looking at that, but with things changing, we're still trying to
figure out how y'all gonna change.
how could that work for us and still work? But right now we have that, working well. So.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So for somebody watching, explain to them the process. They don't necessarily have to come to your training. So what's the process to apply for a grant?
So, for example, if you could just give me a call, and I could talk to you. Now, you can't talk me into a grant over the phone because people do. People do call me, and I'm like, well, I can't do that. There's a process. This is not the process. But you could call me, and I could talk to you, and then I could tell you what you would have to do. So you would have to. Usually, we have that online, and then you would. Complete the pre-application online and submit that and get that in by the end of January, and then that would begin the process so that you could, be considered.
To be considered. What's the website?
Website is www.unitedblackfund.org, and then all the information in the grants area would be there.
So they can check out, go to the website.
It will be up there when it's that time period. We don't leave grant information up when it's not time because we would be getting stuff
inundated with all kind of stuff
all the time. So
the window is normally like a month, January.
Yeah, usually
the beginning
a month.
of January to the end of January is the pre-application process.
Right?
And then
and then we fund 3 categories. So basic needs, which would be housing, food, medicine, anything basic needs that you would think of, clothing, stuff like that. Then we do education. which could be, early childhood, middle school, could be adult. And then we do workforce development. The workforce is interesting because, again, you read that too.
Mm-hmm.
So the workforce is something I was delving into, again, before the pandemic hit.
Mm-hmm.
But what I was discovering is that very often what programs think is workforce development and what the needs are in the real workforce are night and day. And so I was delving into helping them explain really what it is.
What workforce would
what it
look
really
like.
is and what it looks like. And so, I had a person from Tri-C come in, and we were about to take a tour down to the manufacturing tech, all of that.
All that had to stop.
Yeah, all that had to stop. And mainly it was to show folks in workforce development the resources that are here, right here, that you on the bus line.
Mm-hmm.
You can just go on down to Tri-C, Metro Campus, and here's all this technology right here. You can, get people involved. And the other thing too that we have to look at with our community is our folks absolutely have to have high school diplomas.
High school diplomas.
Yeah, you got to
GEDs.
GED, something. You have to have something.
So let's go back and unpack those three things.
Yeah.
So the first one we talked about is the workforce.
Yes.
So with the workforce, if I have a thought, an idea, an organization, 501c3 that deals with workforce, what are the things that I'm dealing with?
Some of the things you want to make sure is you have to, we're looking for program that offers a concrete type of training, but then has a placement.
Okay,
piece to
so
it.
not just I'm going to come and teach you these soft skills and all right, you got a certificate of a completion, soft skills, you know how to interview,
Right.
and you're going.
I want it to lead to placement in something.
It lead to job placement.
Yes,
Okay.
because the problem is there's so many programs where you have the soft skill, and so many folks have gone through so many of these trainings that lead to nothing.
Okay.
And so it's very frustrating.
Yeah, I'm
to
sure.
go to endless training, it leads to nothing. So we're looking for concrete programs that you offer something, but then you are placing them in a way so that there's some employment. Okay. We're also looking at, again, making sure that if folks come to you, there should be an assessment to see what they have or don't have. So if they don't have that high school, then you don't need to be segueing them into training. You need to be moving them into a place where they can go get that high school
GED,
diploma
yeah.
or that GED. And then the people have to realize that if you are missing some things, it comes a time where you can't skip around. You just have to get these things that you need to get.
Yeah.
You just can't keep trying to get over because it's going to catch up with you eventually.
Yeah.
So if you need to get some things, get it.
So let's say that I have a program and I'm teaching them the soft skills, but I don't have the wherewithal or the connections as it relates to job placement. So do I need to partner on my own, or will you guys say, okay, you have this program, she has this program, why don't you all three partner together? This is the job skills, they have the training, this is the placement. What does that look like?
Yeah, so that's a good point. Again, that's the part where you can talk to me. We can see who you need to collaborate with. And as I tell people in the grant writing class, you focus on what you can do well, but you don't need to reinvent the wheel because there's so many programs out here. You just need to know what's out here. So you have to come out of your silo. You know, what happens very often is we get stuck in our own little world and we don't go beyond that. So we don't know what else is out here. We don't even know sometimes, for example, there was an organization in Mount Pleasant on Kinsman, and she was looking for somebody who worked with youth. Okay, well, right across the street diagonally was a program that worked with youth. She didn't even know that.
Her neighbor right across the street.
Yeah, she didn't even know that. But that happens a lot, that people don't even know, you know, what's around. So you have to get to know what's around, and we have to be, I think, a little less territorial about, our programs, and we have to be willing to, collaborate with people, because you can't do everything. Somebody else is doing it.
And I find that people are so, I don't know what the word is, they don't want to share.
Yeah,
it's like so close-knit.
Yeah.
I don't want to share. If I share with somebody, they're going to take my idea. If I share with somebody, they're going to run. They can't run away with your baby. That's your baby.
But, if we work together, because you do this and I do this well, then, possibly we can go someplace and get joint funding and get something really well together. But we have to learn how to, work together.
That's true. That's very important. So with the whole workforce piece, yes, you can come in and have a piece of it, but then you also have to have the community partners that you can partner with to bring in all of them, so you can have the bigger picture.
Sure. Because you got to know where else you might need to send people. Because like I said, maybe that person coming doesn't have that GED. Okay, well then here's a program that they can go to obtain that. And then when they have that, then they come back to you.
Right.
But, don't spin your wheels trying to put somebody through this training if they don't have that basic credential, because it's not going to work.
It's not going to. Or even a resume.
Yes, if you don't have a resume, or a work history.
All of that is
That's very tough. And so there are a lot of people that don't have that, but then they have the expectation that they should start at a certain place. Well, that's going to be impossible. So you have to kind of be realistic and start from where you are, and then you build up. So a lot of that is being realistic too. And then I think with the programs that you might get with, they have to be honest about where people are too,
and what they can truly
and what you
offer.
really can offer.
So then the next one is education. What does that look like? I'm coming to you for education. What kind of stuff am I coming to you for?
It could be, like I said, early childhood, so maybe it's literacy with children. It could be, we have a lot of education programs related to the schools, where they may be, teaching students certain things, and so with the school programs, we were looking for more concrete types of things. And then again, you have to look at stages of life. So for example, as I talk about in my class, if you're working with children, you are not, that's not workforce development. Okay.
Because they're not bringing in
they're not going to work.
W-2s.
It is career exposure, it is career, whatever. But it's not workforce development.
Okay.
And so again, that's what gets back to knowing what you're doing. If it's the 17 through 24 and up, that's a workforce development piece, okay? Because that is a tough group, because what we find is, and that's why it's very hard to work with that group, as long as our young people are connected to school or some system, there is help for them. But the moment you leave school, if you don't graduate for whatever reason, once you're out of that system, it is so difficult to get you connected to things.
Wow.
Yeah. Unless you, you decide maybe I'm going to go to the military, or if I'm lucky enough to get a trade and get some kind of apprentice program or something like that. But if you fall through the cracks, it is very difficult to get people into things. So that's why there's a big challenge with a lot of workforce programs to deal with this population.
Yeah.
So if you're missing a lot of things that we talked about because you didn't graduate or whatever, and you don't have some things, it's going to be very tough for you to navigate
through those processes, unless
so
you're connected to something. So with that, maybe a nonprofit can have an education piece that can lead them to the workforce development.
Which means, so that means you have to take advantage. So, I'm looking at some things that have gone away. Like I saw life skills on Larchmere. That's gone.
Really?
Yeah, now there's going to be an 88 apartment unit that they're going to build over there. So, you have some of these entities that used
to be there, but they're gone.
But they're going
so now
away.
It's a need. That sounds like it's a need for something like that.
Yeah. So things change. So you have to find out what is available so that you can continue to send people. And if you find that maybe people have an issue with literacy, then you've got to plug them into programs for adult literacy, like Seeds for Literacy or some other programs. But there's a lot of things you have to do with some of the population to get them up to a certain point, and then you can
help
move
them from there. Yeah,
but they have to
those
understand
basic
that
things.
There's a
So
lot
that's
of
the last one, basic needs. So if I'm coming to the United Black Fund and my focus is basic needs, what am I focusing on?
You may need food.
Okay.
It could be clothing. It could be medicine. So, for example, we fund an organization called Project Hope. So our grants allows them to purchase medicine from their sources for little to nothing, and so that they can provide medicine to their clients, for little to nothing. I think it's probably nothing, but it can be very expensive if you're diabetic and you don't have money for your insulin or other things, so that that provides that. We have another program we funded that deals with eye care.
Okay.
So
basic needs. Okay. Question: do you guys fund churches?
Yes,
Okay.
we do. We have funded churches. Very often, some churches had food pantries in the past.
Okay.
We've funded programs where they did HIV testing in the past, or they've been, some kind of youth.
Some kind of outreach. So if a church has some kind of outreach that falls under these three categories: basic needs, education, and workforce.
Right.
And I just want to be clear on that, because a lot of people think no matter what it is that I have, if I come to United Black Fund, I can be funded. No. They fund three
We fund
categories.
3 categories, and again, your application is key. So if your application is crap, even though you're submitting it for one of those 3, it might not get funded.
Okay. So that's important. I mean, that's true. That's important.
That's that's the way I talk in class too. I keep it real. But because that's what we're talking about. You may have the desire and all of that, but again, if you can't present yourself well in that grant application, you may not get funded. Because remember, there's a lot of competition, for grant funding. And
it's getting tighter.
It's getting tighter, and especially for our smaller organizations, because there really are not many places for smaller organizations to go for funding. So we get tons of, people coming to us. So that's why I say you really have to spend time really crafting a quality application, and just don't throw something together and think you're going to get funding.
So how much do you guys award your grants for?
So our grants go up to $10,000, but of course, if you're new, you're never going to get that the first time. I'm just going to put that out there.
Okay.
But yes, they go up to $10,000.
So and they start at, what's the minimum?
We tried. Well, some people may ask for 4. So if you ask for 4, we'll give you 4.
Okay.
Yeah, depends.
So people won't come for like $2,000. Normally, it's anywhere.
No, we've had some. Some people may come for 2 because that's all they need.
Okay.
So,
So just anywhere from $100 to $10,000.
Yeah, not the 100. It's a little small, but
Okay.
we find probably I'd say the least is probably $2,000.
$2,000. So anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000, and it has to fall in those 3 categories: basic needs, education, and workforce development.
Yes.
And you will fund a church if it has an outreach, because a lot of people just don't even think that a church can be funded, or a ministry per se. But it's not the church or the ministry; it's the outreach.
It is
that's
the
being
program.
funded. Okay.
Yes. So again, that's why you have to be clear. You have to have a concrete program, meaning you must have clients. It just can't be.
It's not an ideal. I just can't have an
no,
idea.
You just can't have an idea and there's nobody there.
It sounds good. So I'm telling you, if you give me the money, once I get it going, the people are going to come and we're going to help them.
People have to have been there. You have to have been doing something. And I'm going to give you just a little tip. Very often, foundations, sometimes they don't really like to fund churches. I'm going to tell you why. Because very often churches are very horrible stewards of the money. They're horrible with the reporting.
I've heard that before.
Yes, they want the money and all of that, but they're absolutely horrible with the reports. So that's why a lot of foundations, they don't even like funding churches.
Because they haven't been keeping up with their due diligence.
They're not good at it. So.
And then nowadays, it's no excuse. There's no excuse because you have QuickBooks and other things that'll keep that stuff for you. So I always enjoy chit and chat with you. We can go on for hours.
God, is it time?
I know.
I gotta come back.
I know, that's right. Just
for part 2.
Bite yourself back. We will have a part 2.
I'm coming back.
We will have a part 2. So before we close out, give them your contact information, the website, and any closing remarks you want to share with the viewing audience.
Okay, so let me give you my email address. So it's cterry@unitedblackfund.org. Phone number is 216-566-9263. You can check our website. You can email me. Let me see. My parting advice would be prepared, because you never know when opportunities will come, and when they come, you have to be ready. So when that opportunity came at that meeting, I was ready, because nobody in that year, they had been talking about it, but nothing had happened until I'm sitting there going, I'm like, it's time. So yeah, always be ready, and that way when you're at the table, you have a chance to show what you can do.
All right. Thanks, Celeste.
Thank
you guys for tuning in. I'm Pastor T. This is Christian Networking Entrepreneurs. And remember, if you don't network, you don't work.